All right, so peace and greetings. So excited to be back with you, season 4, Rise
Yes.
Divine Feminine podcast. We have our guest today, our beautiful guest today, who has so much to share with us. Her and I got in a conversation recently, and I just knew that once I opened the doors for today's podcast, that we would not be able to stop talking. So
Period.
I'm going to introduce just Lena, and then Lena is going to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her. Welcome, Lena.
Hello. Hi, Goddess Queen Jamila. Yes, my name is Lena Camberlin, also known as Skate Goddess so far on Instagram. I am Florida born, Guadalupean raised, Caribbean American who has been following the path of the calling that my ancestors have placed upon me. And that is always so takes it so many different forms. So when I'm asked, okay, describe yourself, I'm like, which self? I've lived a lot of lives. I, graduated college and I went immediately into my bigger life as a software sales account executive. So I've been out there in those $1 billion boardrooms making decisions on implementation tech projects. And then I threw all of that away to follow the calling that was placed on my heart. And then I randomly became a roller skate influencer. It almost seems overnight, which was wild. But I'm in a new transitioning space where I'm deepening into my purpose and my path as a storyteller, as someone who wants to share ancient indigenous wisdom with her community. And that's really just a subset of the types of things that I've been into lately.
Nice. So much goodness, so much to share. Let's see. I want to start by first talking about you. You mentioned that you're Florida born and that
Yes.
you're also Caribbean.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'd like to get a little bit of I'd like the audience to know where you are currently, just any shifts that have changed for you in the last 5 years since the pandemic began. And just kind of where you're gravitating to just geographically right now.
Yes. Okay. So that is a whole novel, honestly. I was gonna say chapter, but it ain't a chapter. It's been multiple chapters since 2020. I can't even, but we're gonna start with where I am now. Currently, I am in Guadeloupe, and I'm in Guadeloupe because that is where my entire family is from. Both my mom was born there, my dad was born there. I have indigenous ancestry to these lands. Also, another part of my ancestry was brought here on a boat, to work the sugarcane fields. And another part of my ancestry was the people who owned the plantations. So it's a lot, but all of that is the essence of being Guadeloupean. But it's not easy to get to Guadeloupe. Most people have never heard of it, or if they've heard of Guadeloupe, they think I'm talking about Guadalupe, Mexico, which is a city. It is not that. It is an island that is 2 or 3 islands south of Puerto Rico. It has actually a lot of things in common, like the foods, the dances, with Puerto Rico. And actually, it is Afro Latina, and that's a complex thing we could get into in another time. Um, but I haven't been very often. This is probably only my fourth time, and I'm in my 30s. Because of how challenging and expensive, and it's just challenging to get to. So I really wanted to immerse myself here, and really spend some time. So I'm in my third month of being in third and last month this year at minimum of being in Guadeloupe, reconnecting with my ancestors, reconnecting with my family, reconnecting with my matriarchal line. And this is really the culmination of a calling that's been on my heart that I received even more strongly in 2022. But this journey really cracked wide open in 2020. So before we get into that bit, I will pause because I just said a lot.
Beautiful. No, I mean, like, I think that You did a really good job in your introduction, just letting people know like what you're known for. You are known as a skating influencer, and that
Yes.
somebody may be listening right now who's like, "Oh yeah, this is a skate goddess. Like I totally remember her. I know her. I follow her on Instagram." Fine, and yet there's so many layers of your life, of
Yes.
your personality, of your
Yes.
journey that are behind the scenes. So
Yes.
it would be great for us to kind of understand. I mean, for me, one of the things that I have found is even by mentioning to people that my family is Trinidadian, that I'm Trinidadian, my mother and father are Trinidadian, I'm Caribbean. Even mentioning that brings people who didn't know that they needed to connect with me in that way. They couldn't
Mhm.
understand why. And then it was like, okay, now I'm understanding. Now I'm seeing why I'm gravitating towards this person. Now there's more clarity.
Mhm.
So,
Resonance.
yes, absolutely. And even with you and I didn't know that you were Caribbean and you didn't know that I was Caribbean. So it's like, okay, even now with us, it makes sense. So I'd
Right.
love to hear, or we'd love to hear, tell the audience more about just why now? Like, why are you in Guadeloupe? What brought you there? Like, what was
Mhm.
the deciding factor? Why 3 months?
Mhm.
What is the pull? What caused you to get up and leave from Florida to go to Guadeloupe?
Yes. So I was in Atlanta actually since 2020. So I went from Atlanta to Guadeloupe, if we want to simplify that story. But really, I since 2022, in 2022, I had a six-figure account executive job, right? So I was successful by lots of standards. People were like, "Oh wow, you're doing that, you made it." But inside I knew I hadn't made it. I was deeply miserable, deeply depressed, deeply anxious. And in 2022 I just was like, I had known I needed to quit for a long time, but I was so in the throes of my depression. I didn't know what I needed to do. I didn't know what was going on, and I just kept hearing the call from my ancestors. They're like, just trust us, follow the path, and you'll enjoy what's on the other side. And I was like, y'all are asking me to quit this job that I worked my entire life to get to, that is making me miserable. But I have a 401k. I got the credit. I got the credit cards. I got the savings. I got all of the things in the 3D. I got a house. I got a car. All of that kind of stuff that give you that sense of stability, kind of uneasy stability. Um, but I trusted. And since then, I make it my business to trust and surrender and follow the call of spirit. And so in 2024 and 2023, really, I just knew that I was going to be making another shift. And I knew that one of the things I would have to do, if I'm really going to go on this indigenous wisdom path that I feel is in my heart, that I have to go to I have to go to the source. I know I got to go to Africa, that's coming. But I know that I needed to reconnect in Guadeloupe, and I needed to spend time there. I needed to be in the soil. I needed to talk to my ancestors and to my family. I needed to do genealogy studies. I needed to see what the culture is like. I needed to understand who the Kalinago people were. There's so much work I knew I needed to do. And so basically all 2024, I knew, I was like, next year I'm probably going to be traveling a lot. And so I my lease was up in October, and I was like, I'm not renewing it. I'm getting rid of all of my things. I'm moving down to Orlando where my family is, and that's going to be my base, my jumping off point to do all of the things I know that I need to do. But I had to really practice that detachment and release, because baby, I had a cute little apartment. I'm a Libra rising, so all my stuff was adorable. It was a lot to let go of.
I definitely can relate and resonate with that, and I'm sure everybody can relate to the idea of just surrendering and just letting go, right?
Yes.
Being in a place where you are um, detached, attached, but detached. And it's not easy. It's never
Mm.
easy to go through that process. What do you think really assured you or helped you to I'm sure you had doubts. So when the doubts did come, what assured you? What kept you clear? What kept you from saying,
Hmm.
Nah, let me stay where I'm at. What was it that pushed you and kept you?
My ancestors have a funny way of making things not be a choice for me. So it's really not even like me being like, I'm working on like getting to the point where I move before they make me. But for example, I wasn't right, I wasn't about to quit my job. I really wasn't about to quit my job, but I got into, I was in functional freeze, and then I was in a dysfunctional freeze where I literally I was mentally paralyzed at work, and I knew either I had to quit or they was going to fire me because I had profile projects with high profile clientele, billion dollar clients who needed me to do the things that I was the lead. So I needed to do things, and I would see my email inbox flooding, and I literally could not, I was paralyzed. So that's when I had to take medical leave at that point because I was like, I can't move. I'm frozen. So it's kind of a similar vibe where it's like, yes, I feel called to do this. I was getting dreams of um of storms, of tornadoes, of what do you call it? Tidal waves, taking, I just kept feeling like everything, the wind was coming and taking everything from me. And I was trying to like grab as much as I can, but it was just being taken away from me anyways. And that I was being brought to a whole new dimension. I just kept having dreams. So I knew it was happening. And I was like, either I can go with it or they gonna drag me.
And no one wants to get drug. Okay.
No,
We don't want that for ourselves. Okay.
no.
We don't like that for ourselves. So
Yeah.
I really love the acknowledgement that, yeah, with some of our ancestors, it's clear, baby. They probably be clapping up in the spiritual realm like, you gonna do what we said. That's the end of it. I know mine are petty like that. Like mine be like, listen, I'm not even gonna hold you. This is what's happening. Okay. So you can come willingly, or you can come on the brink of the end of it. We're not trying to come on the brink of the end of nothing. We coming. We just hold on. Let me drink this water. We're coming. So we
Right.
give thanks and praise for you taking heed, because we don't want no
Right.
problems. Okay.
Right.
The question is, what do you feel like you like already in this journey? It's been 3 months. What do you feel like you have shed, or what do you feel like you even left
Mm,
behind on the plane? Like what is the
mm.
what was the release? What were you releasing when you did board the plane, and in the 3 months time that you've been there? What have you self
Yes.
let go?
Hmm. What have I released? Like I often think of like all of the things that I've gained, but I will say like a lot of the things that I've released is my conception of self and the fears that come with it. Like the self consciousness piece and the how do I even, I'm trying to like really distill what I've released, but essentially like it's been a calling to really do the work that I've been dreaming of and saying into myself that I wanted to do, that I've been talking to my friends, and it's been releasing those limiting beliefs that are in the way of that, like just layer by layer, because there's a strong rough bark that's just been built up, especially in my time in corporate where I could not be me. I had to show up as the person that they needed me to be, executive presence and all that, professionality. Like me showing up as a Afro descended Carib Kalinago descended woman is not acceptable. It's not professional. It's not considered professional in the workplace. So I had to really put that in a box. And there's been this kind of coming out to myself, really showing up as myself type of activity. And there's been a lot of like shedding my own like ego in that, an ego dissolution, because I'm in different places where people expect different things from me that um that I didn't, things I didn't have to do when I was in Atlanta around my peer group, around people who understood me. Um, and so all of that has been really leading to a deeper sense of self, a more grounded sense of self. Um, but yeah, it's definitely been a trip. I feel like I've been on a very long psychedelic trip.
That's essentially what this whole season is about, really how these processes of being in different geographic locations um show
Hmm.
really expose levels of yourself or versions of yourself to you, and that's so essential. It's like I think in the last maybe 5 years I've probably been to about 20 different countries. And
Wow.
yeah, it's like everywhere I go, here I am. Everywhere I
Hmm.
go, I'm there. I remember about 10 years ago, what year is this? 2025? About 10 years ago, I went to Paris, and
Mm.
I was in Paris, and I've been a solo traveler since I think 2011. So I was there by myself, and of course, I don't speak any French. Of course, I don't know anyone there. And I'm kind of strolling around looking for, I don't know what I was looking for, but what I did find was a bridge with a river. And when I stepped foot on that bridge, honey, like I'm just like, oh, look, a river. Let me go to this river. Let me go on this bridge. And when I stepped foot on that bridge, like I just started heaving and crying and hoeing and snotting and all these
Mm.
things. And it just felt like, oh my God, I've been to this bridge before. I've been to this bridge
Mm.
before. Like this area is not new to me. I am returning back to some part of myself that I left in Paris circa, the 1800s. I don't know. So it was really a confirmation, that we can literally find ourselves everywhere. We can find
Yes.
aspects of ourselves everywhere. You talk about being suppressed, and not being able to be your full authentic self, not being able to be in that essence of um of who you are authentically. And I'm curious about what parts of yourself you see now or you've
Mm.
discovered now in being there that you're like, okay, yeah, I
Mm.
forgot about this, or I needed this part to be activated and nurtured.
Mm.
What have you discovered about Lena in the last 3 months?
In the last 3 months. Um, I have to really think about that. Like, what parts of me have I discovered? Like, I've been on such a long self-discovery journey, right? I've been through my shadows and I've been through explored my light. And so a lot of the things that I meet aren't new to me, right? And so in this time, it's been a really about discovering my inner strength and my inner resilience. Like, I've been really getting on being intentional about my connection with my ancestors, being intentional about tapping into my spiritual power and how that makes a difference. Like, when I'm not doing it, when I'm not like taking specific time to be at my altar and pray, life goes differently than when I'm having lit the candle, when I'm asking my ancestors for strength, when I'm doing all of that stuff, when I'm sitting, going to nature, when I'm at the beach, I'm very much seeing the difference in my life between the two. I'm also, working through a lot of matriarchal DNA, matriarchal trauma in my family line on my mother's side. And so that's really asking me to go deeper into letting go of my own ego and diving deeper into my own strength of how do I show up when I don't feel like I'm being shown up for example. How do I show up when I don't feel like things are going in the way that I would prefer? How do I show up when things are rocky? And so for me, it's really been a lot of interpersonal relations because there is so much trauma in our families. You know, we've been through so much stuff as a people that sometimes in some families, those patterns persist. And if I'm someone who really speaks about decolonial narratives, and I'm someone who's talking about epigenetic trauma and wanting to heal that, it's really starts at the home. And that's been a lot of the work that I've been focusing on, moving through, learning about, and embodying.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about that because I'm sure there are people right now, there's sisters who are listening and you're using some terminology that they're like, I don't know what that is.
Mm,
I'm
mhm.
not familiar with those concepts. Talk to us a little bit about what you've been studying or what you've been learning about and really what you'd like to share with someone who's never heard of these concepts of maybe the trauma that you speak of and working through a matrilineal lineage.
Yes. Whoa. So I'm like downloading all of the ideas.
Come on now, let it rain, honey.
Right, right. So a couple of the things I touched on were matrilineal DNA and epigenetic trauma, and they really go hand in hand together, right? So matrilineal DNA is really about the concept that like all humans can. When we trace down our DNA heritage, it's passed on and traced down on the side of your mother, your grandmother. That's the thread, and a lot of African cultures, they recognize it. They recognize that there's a thread that connects us that goes back through our ancestors on the mother's side. And science also corroborates this, right? So if you Google mitochondrial Eve, and when I say you, I'm saying anybody listening to this, Google mitochondrial Eve, and you'll see that everybody has a common ancestor that is around uh, Tanzania, South Sudan, the Mount Kilimanjaro, that area is where we all have all humans living on this earth right now have a common ancestor. And so, yes, we're in a patriarchy and there's a lot of value put on the man. We carry the name, all of that. But really, when it comes to your DNA, it's on the mother's side. Like if you try to find out who your tribe is and you go on African ancestry DNA, they check your mother's side because that's the side that matters. That's where heritage comes from. That's where culture comes from, your mother's side. So that's matrilineal DNA, right? And so when we talk about matrilineal DNA in the context of epigenetic trauma, you have to think about when your grandmother was born, not only she had your mother, and then your mother also then has you. So when it comes to trauma, any trauma that happens goes 3 generations back and it goes 3 generations forward. A lot of people colloquially or like in common times on social media, they'll call it generational curses. Generational curses are a real thing because it's trauma that you have, your ancestors have, that was never transmuted, was never alchemized, that was never acknowledged, that was never healed, and it passes down if it's never acknowledged and addressed. And so you'll see certain patterns. Like for example, if your if your mom's um, partner, if your father had like multiple baby mamas, you're more likely to have that because your grandmother probably had that because their grandma, and then that probably went back to some slave breeding plantation somewhere because he had to do that and she had to experience that, and y'all are bringing it back forward today, you know. Um, and in my family, we have a lot of trauma around like like almost like illegitimate children or children coming through in the world in a way that came through like violence, and so that's something that passes through my family line on the mother's side. And so if we're going to do our job as healers to heal, we have to first heal our womb, heal ourselves, heal our family, heal our kids, right? And so sometimes I have challenging experiences with my mother and my grandmother. You know, not everyone goes through that, but that is in my line. You know, And so I'm learning how to really sit in those experiences, and I'm really learning how do we move forward? How do we move in a place where we're not always acting out of fear, or always acting out of anger, or always acting out of feeling attacked and or feeling defensive, because we had to do that to protect ourselves in the past because things weren't safe for us. But how do we know and learn that we are safe in this moment now? Because that is something that we can really, in my line, work on. And so that's the story of matriarchal DNA, epigenetic trauma, and how that really is embodied in my life.
Wonderful. I really appreciate you explaining that in such a clear, detailed way. Because there's a lot of things that we can learn on this great big worldwide web of internet, and some of the information could be frankly confusing. It could be
Yes.
confusing. It's overwhelming. Um, what I think someone who's learning about this for the first time may want to know is how do how does one identify the trauma that they need to maybe work on? How does one identify the thing that they need to pay attention to in order to
Mm.
heal? What methods did you use, and could you give any guidance around that?
Yes, yes, because this has been a long work for me. Like I'm trying, I got the multiple downloads again. I was like, wait, where, how do I share this to make sure that it's con- concise? Because basically this was born out of my the awareness is born out of self-awareness and my own shadow work, right? I spent a lot of time in my youth not being aware of why people reacted to me the way that they were reacting to me. I was like, I don't understand why this keeps happening to me. It was patterns, uncomfortable patterns that were persisting. And I started learning that if there are patterns that consistently pop up in your life, you can either consistently say that this is people and people suck and that's how the world is and the world is being mean to me and woe is me, blah blah blah. Or you can take radical responsibility and understand that the common denominator is you. And so,
For the people in the back. Okay.
right, for the people in the back, the common denominator is you. And so I had to really look at myself and understand that it was me and I needed to fix myself. I needed to understand why this was showing up. I needed to understand why I was attracting certain things in my life. And in that process of discovery, I went through a dark night of the soul. I really didn't like myself for a long time, a couple of years, because I was like, I don't, I was always like, I'm always trying to show up the best. Like I just want the best for people, and this is how people treat me. But what I was doing was I kept having like a victim narrative. I kept being really easily offended and taking things personally, and I was being a messy girl. I was in my 20s. I didn't know I was being messy because for me, they hurt me. So, I'm just reacting out of that hurt. But why was I hurt? Did I speak to them? Did I actually try to resolve things? There's a lot of things that I wasn't doing out of fear. There was a lot of, even when people were showing up to me in a negative way, there are ways I could have stepped into my power and been like, you're experiencing this from me. How can we figure this out together? I could have taken ownership instead of passing it off as I'm being victimized. And so a lot of this also was in relationships. So I went to therapy, girl. I was paying a Tesla bill in therapy. I had the means, I could afford it. That was a privilege. I did EMDR, and I learned that I just wasn't feeling safe. And when I wasn't feeling safe, I would lash out. And so we did a lot of underlying what was the limiting beliefs in my life that was causing me to create narratives and stories that continue to repeat. And as I explored those narratives, challenged those narratives, and gave myself what I needed to resolve the narratives, my life drastically changed. I don't have those problems no more. And that's how I knew what traumas were in my family, because that's where I learned it.
Got it. And that makes perfect sense. You were
Mm-hmm.
essentially demonstrating habits or behaviors based off of thoughts, and these thoughts came from a particular source. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, so
Ooh, sorry, girl. I just got bit by an ant. I'm outside in these Guadalupean streets.
sorry,
Mm-hmm. No
sorry. That,
worries.
that ant was giving you a little bit of yes on behalf of the church. Okay,
Yes.
that,
Period. Period.
that is what that was. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to kind of detour a little bit and kind of go jump over to the roller skating goddess vibes
Yes.
and explore that water a little bit, because honestly, sis, anybody who looks at your page, tell me your handle again.
Right now it is skate_goddess, but it might change soon.
Hey, that's fine. We're gonna find you. We're gonna find you one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But with your page, you bring a lot of the vibes in the movement, and a lot of freedom and play. There's just a lot of things
Yes.
to offer um that is intentional. You're
Yes.
offering a particular energy to us, the ones who watch you, the ones who really enjoy your content. I'm curious, like, how does skating show up for you? What is your personal relationship with it? Is it a spiritual practice? Is it an ancestral practice? It sounds like you've been on a really life oriented journey, a chaotic kind of come to where I am moment in the process of life. So what does skating represent for you in the midst of all of that?
Yeah, skating is so healing. Skating has really been a healing modality, a healing tool for me. Um, I got into skating because in 2020 I was extremely depressed and anxious. And I was still at my job, my super fancy, high profile job, where I had to show up consistently every morning and work until the evening with clients because I was customer facing. So I couldn't be stank. I had to constantly be on. But I was super depressed, super anxious, dealing with a lot of stuff, and I needed help. Now, I was like, I could either go the route of prescription medicine, or I could try everything in my power that we have as tools before that. And so when I would Google depression, anxiety, how to resolve, they would be like physical exercise. But I did not like the gym. I look like I like the gym. I don't like it in there. It smells funny. It's not cute. I'm a Libra rising. I don't like it.
No judgment, no judgment. Okay, I'm a gym
Mhm.
girly, so no judgment.
Yeah, and I think it's great that people like it. It just never was something for me. I never could get into it. I was like, if this is what I have to do, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it. So I was trying to find something that that I could get out of bed for. And I was just like, oh, I'm in Atlanta. There was a trail behind my house for people who are familiar with Atlanta. I lived on the Beltline. So I was just like, let me make use of this. And, I was like, oh, there's that retro thing people used to do in the 80s, roller skating. I did not know at the time that Atlanta was a roller skating capital.
Yes, we is, honey. Yes, we are. The Golden Glides, the Cascades. Okay, the ATL bounce. Okay.
And I had no, as someone whose parents are immigrants, I had never seen roll bounce. I had never seen ATL. I had never seen None of that. So I had no context, and I didn't even know people really went to the rinks like that. So I was gonna skate outside. I never saw anyone skate outside. I'm an Aquarius moon. I like to be an original. So I was like, ooh, I'm gonna be retro out in these streets and in like, some like short shorts and like those tube socks. I'm gonna be cute. It's gonna be great. And so I started, I set that intention out there, and then Spirit, honestly, I got like a random thing from Spirit, like, you should skate. And I was like, okay. And then as soon as I obeyed that call, I saw someone roller skating outside out of my apartment, and I stopped her and I was like, where'd you get those skates? Where'd you learn how to skate? And she basically hooked me up. And that's how I got into it. There was a huge roller skating outdoor community. Well, it wasn't huge at the time. It was 15 people in a parking lot learning how to skate. And so I did that. The pandemic blew roller skating up. That 15 people came 200 plus. I became a leader in my community because that's important to me. Because when there's a gap, especially in leadership and community, I feel it. That's a whole other story. But I wanted to bring a safe space for women, a safe space for Black people, and so I created an organization called Boss ATL. That had like 150 plus people strong. I was basically moving and grooving, and at the same time, I was healing myself through community. I was healing myself through movement. I was healing myself through expression, because on my skates, I could be skate goddess, because and that like was such so healing for me, because at work I had to be boss Lena. I had to lead teams of people who were twice my age and really skeptical of listening to someone with my face, especially 5 years ago. This baby face was even more baby, and so I could actually let go. And for the first time in my life, I felt what it felt to be in a feminine flow. I was like, whoa, I'm like feeling pretty, I'm feeling creative. I'm just like allowing myself to express, and I was seeing how that changed things for me. And so for me, it's healing, it's spiritual, it's community, it's so many things all in one. And I'm so forever thankful for what skating has afforded me.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Hmm.
beautiful, beautiful. Um, okay, so let's kind of tap back into something that you said um earlier when you talked about, again, like just surrendering and becoming and doing the self work and following the steps and the guidance. How do you feel like your softness or your femininity has been affected since leaving the US? Where do you see
Mm.
that that impact?
Since leaving the US, I wouldn't say that, like, I would say that I'm able to be soft in this space, because that's a wound in my family too, like in my matriarchal line. The women in my family on my mother's side weren't afforded the time, space, or safety to be feminine, right? Or to rest. Because I want to be careful about saying feminine. Now there's a lot of people being like, that's just repackaged patriarchy, blah, blah, blah. But what I mean is like just that feeling of safety, that feeling of creativity, that feeling of receiving, to be able to receive anything, that the feeling of being able to let go. And so here I have to sometimes really ground into what I've practiced in the past 5 years of femininity, of reception, of all of those qualities that come with that. Because one of the wounds in my family is the lack of that. So sometimes I feel an expectation to abandon the things that I've practiced for the past 5 years. So it's really a test to really stay centered and embody all of the things that I've said that I embody over the years.
Mm. So how do you stay grounded? Like, it's a
Yeah.
transitional space, leaving from the States, the culture, the stuff that you had, the material possessions, the family members, like then coming back to an ancestral place and, going through that transition and the release and the surrender and what you left behind. Like, how do you stay grounded in yourself when you're not, and you're going to transition again. You said you're here for 3 months, so you're leaving
Mhm.
again. And what's the grounding process in all of
Yeah. And that's an excellent question because that has been something I've also had to intentionally practice. Thankfully, there are so many more tools readily available in Guadalupe than I would have in Atlanta. For example, in Atlanta, I lived in an apartment. So sometimes when I would feel ungrounded, I would have to then go downstairs, get in my car, drive 10 minutes, go to the park, have everything packed, set everything, make sure that the homeless person wasn't eyeing me out, then trust that no one was going to bother me while I laid, on the grass under the trees. There was and that's just, I'm just being real. Here I'm sitting outside, right? I'm sitting outside, I'm seeing the sun, I'm looking at a coconut tree at this moment right now. It's actually slightly raining. I'm smelling the earth. There are chickens around here, you know? And so I make sure to spend moments with myself, spend moments with nature, spend moments with the community that I've built in Atlanta. So I can stay grounded in who I am, who I've been, who I've practiced, heal with the elements, heal with nature. Like I always feel better when I go to the beach, when I go visit the river, when I lay down in the earth, when I put my bare feet in the ground. I also speak to my ancestors. I pull cards. I journal. Ooh, I journaled this morning, multiple pages. All of that. I talked to a friend. All of those are all of that are tools that help me stay grounded in all of this transition and all of the chaos and all of that ooey gooey caterpillar dark night of the soul stuff that I'm currently transitioning through at this moment.
So let me get into that keyword there too, that about 1,500 times. Again, for someone who has no idea what that means, dark night of the soul, what does that mean? What are you talking about? What does that actually mean, Lena?
Yes, yes. Dark night of the soul. Oh my gosh. The dark night of the soul is basically the phenomena that is the between space between who you were and who you are becoming. Other people also call it the liminal space, but that might also be mad technical. I'm not. So it's that really, it's that darkness. It's that subconscious space. It's that confusion. It's chaos. It's also a deeply fertile creative space. Like the Zulu call it fertile darkness. And so you'll know that you're going through a dark night of the soul when you feel uncomfortable being what you've always been, but you know that you're not yet what you know in your mind that you need to be. You can also, another metaphor is the cocoon. Like there's a caterpillar, and then the caterpillar is like, I don't know, I don't think the caterpillar knows what's happening. It just knows it's got to do it. And then it literally disintegrates and becomes mush. And it has to trust the process and come out a butterfly. And so those are really, that's the dark night of the soul, that confusion and chaos in between.
I think that's a really good way, a good comparison is using the caterpillar, because the caterpillar literally has to go into a cocoon of darkness in order to emerge into the light. And
Mm-hmm.
there's this time period, just the 2020s, such a weird ass time period. I mean, of course, we're here in what they would call the age of Aquarius, and I'm not sure why that was a good thing and why there was a song about it, because Aquarius is air, and real folks is tired of air breezing through. It's nothing to hold on to. It's not a tree. It's not the ground. Like it's very flaky. It could be a breeze. It could be a windstorm. There's just so much going on. So I'm wondering, and you mentioned that you're an Aquarius. I would like to say for the record that Lena is not an Aquarius in the way that you are probably thinking. She got some Aquarius in the chart, but she is a Virgo. For all you Virgo girlies, okay, let's be clear. Us Earth girls have to stick together. We cannot be out here breezing through life in reality. We got to have a tree. Okay, there got to be some dirt, some soil somewhere. Okay, even if it's sandy, we need it. Okay. I'm curious about what you would say to someone who is, either experiencing a transition or feeling a call, feeling a pull, feeling something ain't right, something ain't it, and I'm not quite sure what it is. What do I need to do? Do I need to pack up my stuff and go somewhere else? Like, what do you advise to the person who's listening right now who's like, okay, this sounds a lot like my real life, and she's saying my own story. I'm in it. What would you advise that she does?
Yes. It's going to be that mix of trust, of accept and surrender, of trust and of grounding where you can, because the dark night of the soul has a lot, can have a lot of confusion in it. Like, you can imagine yourself in a dark room. You can either stay still in the dark room and continue to stay in darkness, or you can continue to put steps forward. Well, that feels scary as hell. Yes, because you're literally walking in the dark. But you have to continue to take one step forward, another step forward, another step forward, because you won't be in that dark room forever. You'll get onto the into the light, kind of blinded maybe, like, whoa, whoa, it's light out here. And then you'll see the dark room that she was in and be like, wow, I went through all of that. And for me, I'm a very like, ancestor reverence is important to me. African spirituality is important to me. And I'm so thankful for all of the tools that I have in that context that allow me to stay grounded too. When I was in the more deeper throes, because I think I'm coming out of the dark night of the soul that I've been through, that chaos, that transition, I was doing tarot almost every day. And I was asking questions, gaining clarity. And they kept telling me, like, just trust it, sis. Just trust it. You're going through some change. Enjoy the life that you have. Enjoy all the blessings that you have. Because I can always see blessings. Like I said, I'm looking at a coconut tree. I'm on an island. Yesterday, I came back from visiting a beautiful tree. Also, yes, I visited an ancient tree yesterday in the middle of the rainforest, and I went to see a beautiful volcano fed river. And that tree told me to accept and surrender. And so my connection to my ancestors, my connection to my spiritual self, my connection to God is what helps me continue to stay grounded and trust even when I'm stepping in the darkness.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about this ancestral connection. When you talk about that guidance and that trust, and thank you for that answer because I'm sure that was really, really helpful for the person who needs to hear it right now. I'm wondering about uh, this this journey. Your parents left Guadeloupe. I'm not sure when they left or what year it was, and I'm sure that they had to just kind of leave certain things there. That there were things
Mhm.
that they sacrificed in leaving their home country and migrating to the U.S. Obviously, everybody is coming for a better life and trying to improve conditions for their offspring. What have you reclaimed since you came back?
I've reclaimed my sense of self, really, like a deeper sense of self, of what it means to be Guadeloupean, what it means to have African ancestry and Kalinago Carib ancestry and colonizer history. I understand more about, like, the different movements we make, some cultural references we have, like what's important to us, our values, because it can sometimes feel really disconnected and confusing being a Black person in America, but not acting like the other Black people in America. And they're asking me, why you not acting like us? And I'm like, I don't know, but I wasn't, that's not who anybody in my family is, but I can't explain to you why I'm how I am. A lot of people can sometimes interpret that of me just being the colonizer, me trying to be someone who I'm not. But I'm like, I'm not trying to be someone who I'm not. I am this. I just don't know how to explain it to you. But since I've been here, there's like tiny little codes that I'm picking up that I feel where I'm getting reintegrated. Like I'm taking a Gwoka class, which is our Guadeloupean traditional dance. Like the dance that I just learned this past Tuesday was the picking of sugar canes. It's basically this woman, she has a long dress and her machete, and she's walking through the fields, and then she gets to work cutting the sugar cane. And these are things that are integral to my history that I didn't have anything, and I didn't have any context for when I grew up in the States, was around other people who were more American, African American. So I forgot what your question was, but that's what I've gained since I've been in Guadeloupe.
Yeah, just what your parents sacrificed and what you've
yes,
yeah,
that connection to culture.
absolutely, absolutely. So I want to kind of bring our conversation to a close, and I'd like to do that by um, asking you to speak freely, and if there was a message that you could offer, to the thousands of women who are listening right now.
Yes.
Our This Rise of the Divine Feminine podcast has been um, in existence, I think, since 2019 or 2020. And it's always amazing to me when I look at the stats and see where people are who are accessing it, and where who the women are and where they're located and what the age group is. I'm always like, wow, okay, there's women in UK listening right now.
Yes, the
And
diaspora.
yeah, the diaspora is popping, and we're here, and this season is really, really special, because I get to speak with people who I have this shared experience with, of self-discovery in other places, self-discovery abroad, self-discovery in ancestral lands, and etc. So I think I'm going to be pitching this question to everyone who comes on the podcast for this particular season, and just asking, if you were in an auditorium, if you were in a stadium, think of it like a Super Bowl stadium, and you're on the stage and you got the mic in hand, and there are hundreds of thousands of women who are in the audience, women of all age groups, but really diasporan women. We're speaking about diasporans because that's what this season is really about, tapping into our sisters. What would you say? What would you want that your message to be in that moment, on that podium?
Yes, yes. In this time of uncertainty, the thing that is certain is who we are. We can always go deeper into ourselves. And oftentimes they want us to forget who we are. But this is the time for us to remember. And the way to remember is to reconnect to source. That source can be God. That source can also mean the source of who you were born to be and who your ancestors were. So it's time to really get more in touch with your ancient cultures. Understand maybe what tribes that you originated from. Understand your genealogy, understand who birthed you. Because in the discovery of that, you'll find more discovery of self. You'll understand parts of yourself that you didn't understand, but they were carried through you for hundreds and thousands of years, and they are your birthright. And so in this age of Aquarius, where everything is a question, the best thing to question is who you are. Yes.
Bloop, 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 bloop. Fire! Period. Period. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Zoom is asking me, are you playing music? No, I'm not. That's me.
It is music. It's the music of our voices, baby.
Okay. All up in my business, Zoom. Okay. So thank you so much, Lena. It has been a wonderful pleasure to give my audience an opportunity to meet you and to get to know you in this little format. I think at a certain point, we're going to have another conversation on the podcast.
Period.
There's still so many things that we can discussed on a deep dive, and so many really great things that you've brought to the forefront today. But I really, really appreciate you just opening yourself up and making yourself available. Because, baby, this time frame that we are in right now is so unsteady. Okay, so so airy.
It be
Okay,
flippity floppity.
the air, the air. Okay, it's flowing, the breeze. So I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming today. We hope to have you back on Rise of the Divine Feminine podcast again.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Goddess Queen Jamila.
Thank you. All right. And so if you are wanting to get in touch with Lena, I am going to make sure that her socials are in the description. So if you're listening and you've downloaded it, just return to the description of whatever platform you have downloaded this episode from, and you will be able to access her socials on any platform where she is available.